dreamers, a happy, scrappy group of believers. So come, play a part. There's room for mistakes and messes and art. Who cares if there's not many takers? We're doing it for the makers.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the For the Makers podcast. You guys, I know I've said this a lot, but that theme song just hits, Rachel.
I can't.
It really does.
Thank you so much.
It's so fun. Every time we play it, I love watching our guests' reactions. They're always like jamming a little bit or like pretend airplaying the piano. My favorite is to airplay the piano.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
I'm like tambourine all the way.
That tambo in the second half is just killer.
I just remember when I figured out how to add the tambourine, I was like, oh, I've made it.
You were like, yes, this is it.
I figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You guys, we're so glad that you're here and you're listening to us today. I hope you're having a good day. Here it is hot and we are ready for fall. Dear goodness gracious. We're all sweaty, but we're looking forward to fall. I hope you guys are too. I'm trying to remember.
Or maybe it will be fall. Time this comes out.
But I hope you guys are having a good day. I'm just going to reintroduce myself. My name is Liesl Etheridge. I'm one of your hosts on this wonderful podcast, and I'm here with the one and only
Rachel Gifford.
What's up,
Thanks
girl?
for always hyping me up. I appreciate it.
Girl, it's my joy. I love doing it. You're the best. You guys, we have somebody on this podcast today that we have been looking forward to having on this podcast for a long time.
Truly.
We love her so much.
Like one of my favorite people.
And she's so wise and just an incredible performer and friend. And we're just so excited for you guys to just listen and ingest all of the amazing things from her. So Rach, can you introduce our guest today?
Yeah, today we have Sophie Lee Morris. She's an actor, singer, dancer, and storyteller from Mansfield, Texas. I almost said Fort Worth because go Frogs, TCU.
That'll count.
Yeah. And now she's based in Queens, New York. And I'm going to do a little cold read of her bio. Okay. Sophie Lee Morris is a proud member of Actors Equity Association and SAG-AFTRA. Sophie is currently the vacation swing for the first national tour of Jagged Little Pill. Select credits include Gossip Girl, co-star, Law & Order SVU.
Yes.
So you know, I freaking love.
I remember us watching that episode and being like, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I was pumped. It came Valentine's Day, right?
2019.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Gotham co-star Slanted, Enchanted, a pavement musical directed by Alex Ross Perry, National Touring Company of Chicago, Mona, National Touring Company of Dirty Dancing, Understudy Baby, Lisa, Swing. I mean, this is just insane, Sophie. And The Sound of Music, Liesl. Is it? Oslo. I'm like, Asolo Rep.
Not Asolo.
We even had Amy Helms on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, Asolo? No. She's a proud company member of Thistle Dance Company and a graduate of TCU. Go Frogs. Yes, and it's just football season too. So, Sophie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
That was just like the coolest. I mean, we met my freshman year, your senior year of TCU. We had to figure that out before the podcast. I was like, Sophie, when did we meet? I don't remember what we overlapped at TCU, but it's so cool to me, having known you now for 7 years, pretty much. Like just the amount of work that you've done. And I know that, I mean, it's crazy. Well, what's cool is that when you know people in this industry and when you have friends in the biz, it can feel so like you're just like walking through with like cement on your feet, like through the mud. And it's like, when are things gonna like land? And I'm like looking at this now and I'm like, oh my gosh, so many things have landed and it's just awesome. And there's so much more to come. So I'm just so excited for you and proud of you. And
thank you. It's so nice to have. I don't know if I've sent my bio over to people.
Yeah.
But hearing it read out loud, it
really make you feel proud.
Yeah. It was a really sweet thing to be like, oh, this is why we keep going to those auditions. And that's why we keep pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that eventually the bio does grow a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly.
With things that you're really proud of.
Yeah. I mean, freaking Law & Order SVU.
Who knew?
Who
Got to be that dead body. I lived first, so that was the good part. That was the best part.
Live.
But then I did get to be a dead body.
Oh my gosh. It's just like, well, I don't know. I don't think I've shared this on the podcast before, but when I first moved here with Faith Brewer, another TCU grad, we watched so much Law and Order SVU. That was like my intro to Law and Order, was when I first moved to New York City, which is kind of like terrible. What a terrible thing to do as like a young 20-something-year-old woman to like be like, I'm going to watch Law and Order SVU now that I've just moved to New York City. Anyway, so I became obsessed with it. And when you were like, I'm going to be on the show, I was like, Sophie, you don't know what this means to me.
Say hi to Mariska for me.
Yeah, literally. So ridiculous. Okay, but enough about Law and Order. Sophie, let's dive into your life. Can you tell us about how you got into the arts?
Yeah, so as a kid, I would definitely attribute a lot of it to my mother. And then as I grew up, a lot to my now husband. But we'll start at the beginning.
Yeah.
I played soccer growing up. My whole family played soccer. My dad was in an adult league. My brother played. Cool, He's 10 years older than me. My sister played a year younger than me.
Yeah.
We all played soccer. That was what we did as a family. And then it got to be, I think I was middle school aged, and you have to start trying out for club teams. It's no longer just like fun and recreational anymore. It's serious. And I said, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's not for me, I don't think. Competition isn't for me. So what did I do? I then went into choir in school and started competing because they do competitions.
Yeah.
But I did choir, and my mom still wanted me to do an after school activity. So signed me up for this acting class in town, which was so fun. It was like mostly improv based and wild to think about as a kid.
Yeah.
And then a couple years go by, and my mom was like, well, if you're going to act and sing, you should probably dance. And I thought that was way too girly, way too feminine for me. Just did not want to do that.
Yeah.
But thankfully, she's very persuasive, and I fell in love with it. But that was around high school. I started dancing and fell in love with it from there.
I forget that you started that. I mean, that's considered
It's late. Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, which is like kind of crazy.
Yeah, I was about to
no
say.
other profession would be like, oh yeah, you started late. You
Well, that's
started
because
in high school.
you end quickly, right? You
Right,
know?
right.
But I know I felt it was hard to quote unquote catch up, but it's such a privilege to, as you get older, you know your body better. You know how to manipulate it the way that they're asking you to, that you just don't know as a kid.
Right.
So while I was behind for sure, and then when I went to college, there wasn't too much dance in our program. So I do feel like most of my dance training came, post school once I moved to New York. But yeah, it's crazy how much you can catch up because you know your body and you can push it in the ways that it needs to be pushed.
Right.
But yeah, no, I definitely was behind for a little while, and I still don't have quite the built-in technique that some of my dancer friends do who started when they were 3 or 4.
Wow.
Which is like wild to me because I would never know watching you do.
No.
Thank you. Yeah. So then I do attribute a lot to my mom just pushing me constantly forward, kind of, I won't say by mistake on my part, but I just kind of stumbled into a lot of these things and was very grateful that they ended up bumbling into my life the way that they did.
Sure.
But then I went to TCU.
Go Frogs.
Go Frogs. I had a huge champion in the then chair of the department, Harry Parker. And I did meet my husband in high school before we both ended up at TCU.
Oh, wow.
Right.
We did theater there in high school, but he was a big support system for me throughout college, throughout me learning that I wanted to even, yes, I went to school for musical theater, but I didn't expect it to be the path I ended up doing. I loved so many other things.
Sure.
Anything could have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as the saying goes, I got bitten by the bug, and I couldn't, there was no other way to scratch that itch. It had to keep going. And so I attribute a lot of the fact that I was able to even do this career to people like Harry Parker. And then of course my husband, who still lets me run away every once in a while to do a show.
Because y'all moved to New York right after college. Is that right?
That would have been 2014. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. What was that like when you first moved here, like just figuring out how to do everything.
Yeah, I will say it was a little wild, but thankfully our mutual friends from TCU, Gabe and Allison Whitehurst, shout out to them, they're the best, had moved within 2 weeks of us moving to the city.
Yeah.
So we had a very clear built-in support system.
Yeah.
We ended up being roommates. Our first roommate in the city was Alex Bush, also from TCU. So we had a nice little small but mighty group of TCU frogs in the city who were just trying to make things happen. But we were all figuring it out in very different ways. Mm-hmm. But you need at least the one person to be your solid rock, because otherwise everything is new. You're trying to figure out how to find a job, go to auditions.
Yeah.
And somehow do both while actually sleeping and, being non-union at the time. And it was a lot of early mornings, maybe also sleepless nights working. I think I worked at a bakery that closed maybe at 11, but we didn't get out of there until 1 a.m. or 2. And
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oof.
Essentially going home to sleep for an hour and then getting over to Ripley Greer at 5 a.m. and doing it most days.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Can you talk about your process of becoming a union member for both of those unions? Because I think that's just like something that I feel like a lot of people always have questions about.
In terms of equity, I know things have really changed now because the membership is a lot more open. Mm-hmm. But at that point, it was you needed the 50 work weeks at a union house to join equity. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many I ended up with, but I had started earning EMC points back in Texas, doing some of the co-productions with professional theaters while I was at TCU. Mm-hmm. So I came to the city with a few EMC points. I was auditioning, and I think most of the shows that I did before I joined the union were equity eligible in terms of the EMC points. Okay. But I think I made it to like 28 points. And then Dirty Dancing was a union tour. I didn't book it until my third year auditioning for it. But I when I booked that, they were going to give me my card and make me a union member. So I took my card then and have been, that was 2016 was when I got my equity card.
Wow.
That's awesome.
In terms of SAG, I forget exactly the rules, but essentially I worked 2 SAG eligible jobs, very similar to quote unquote EMC points. And then the third job that I worked made me a must join. So to take the job, which was SEU, I needed to take my card. Wow. So in taking that job, I also had to commit to taking my SAG card.
Cool.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never knew that there was a must take.
Yeah. Well, and there is. And so I think what pushed me there is that I did do a couple of SAG waivers in doing background work.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So if you are non-union, be careful of those in terms of the way it can push you to join the union, unless that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
It can push you into the union a little sooner than you may want to join.
Yeah.
I was happy to join when I did.
Yeah.
But I think that one, or like the 2 SAG waiver jobs I did background wise, kind of pushed me into that at that point.
I love that.
That's so, go ahead.
Sorry. What were you going to say?
I have no idea. Go.
Well, I was just going to say, I love watching movies or a TV show and seeing a featured background person or something like that, or a person with one line and just being like, that person may have gotten their SAG card from this job. It's just so fun to be Well,
there are a lot of union members who primarily do background work.
Right.
That's kind of their bread and butter, and they really love it, and they enjoy showing up to set. And yeah.
It's awesome. My gosh. Yeah, it is so interesting, the different, processes. And of course, like you said, the process has changed a bit now for equity, but I feel like it's been wild because LB and I both moved to New York in 2017.
Yeah.
And so we, the 6 years that we've been in here, been in this little island. The 6 years that we've been here, it's been like that. They work weeks were cut in half. And that kind of like changed the vibe of the audition scenes. And then it was COVID hit, and now it's the more open enrollment. And so it's been like so crazy just to, I mean, I think there's so many good things that have come from all of this, but also just like trying to keep up with the ever changing, like how that affects the industry as a whole. It's just been so, I think, interesting, difficult, good. It's like such a mixed bag of just like how to navigate all of it. But anyways.
It really is. I mean, being able to, I think at one point, you know, getting your equity card, becoming a part of the union, getting your SAG membership, all of these things become like a goal for so many people. Like they're like, okay, I want to work in equity houses so I can get my card so I can keep going. And that was like, I remember when I came in, like that was my goal. I was like, okay, if I can get my card, like I've made it. Like that's like something that is like driving me to go to these auditions and do those things. And I remember being in auditions and seeing people walk in with flash their yellow equity card and like set it down on the table. And I would be sitting over with with the peasants, with my non-union friends, and being like, looking at them, just being like, oh, one day, like I'll have my card and I can do it. And now, because the rules have shifted so much and have changed so much, it doesn't really become that anymore, at least from what I experienced from other people's, you know, thoughts and feelings about it. But it does give more opportunity for people to be protected. So there is such it's like a dichotomy that's so interesting.
I do still encourage everybody who asks about taking their card to hold off until you're auditioning with union members, and you can kind of gauge where you are and how you feel. If you go in over and over again as a non-union member and feel like, I want to say this politely, but you feel like you can compete. Yeah. Like you feel like you're at the level of, or even above some of the union members who you're competing against. I know I noticed this a lot going to dance calls. I noticed where that break started to happen. Where I felt like, okay, no, I finally feel prepared. And so I usually encourage people to hold off, like not right out of school unless you have already been working professionally in school and feel prepared for that, but come and do a few professional jobs. Work. That's exactly what the EMC program was to show you the ropes, essentially, how to be a professional, how the theater worked other than just being an actor, how your backstage worked, who your crew was. Like all of those things are so important. And now it does feel a little bit like, oh, I'm just going to take it because I want that. Whether you're actually like ready for it. Right, and that's mentally, that's vocally, dance wise, that's all any of those things. It's way beyond performance. If you're ready to step into that professional job zone, which it is.
Right, exactly.
Did you feel ready come the Dirty Dancing tour that you did? Were you like, I know this is like the right time?
I did. I had already been here for a few years, and I had, like I said, I started dancing a little later, and I really started dancing once I moved to the city in 2014. So I knew I needed the time. So I was happy to wait. I also I did all straight plays for the most part in college. Like I didn't really do any of the musicals. So vocally, I felt like I needed the time too. So I gave myself plenty of leeway, and I thought that 50 weeks, I was like, I'm never going to get there. So I was glad it came before that 50 weeks. And I'm glad once they took it down to 25 weeks, I was fully on board with that. Because that felt like enough time. But I do think most people need the leeway, especially when we're younger. We all think we know it all, and of course we don't. And that's okay. It just, year over year, you learn how little you knew the year before. And so I think that was the biggest deal for me, was just learning the ropes, going to work at these professional theaters as a non-union member and working under union rules with union members of the cast and usually a union crew. So getting to know those ropes that way before I was actually beholden to joining the union, I think was a great thing. So you generally consider people to keep going on that route until they do feel ready. But by the 3 years I had been in the city auditioning non-union, like I said, it's a little easier I hate to say comparison, but to compare yourself against other dancers because you're in the room with them.
Right,
So
exactly.
You're watching how people work, how they pick up choreography, etc.
Yep.
So it's a little easier to gauge where you are because you're in a room with them. But that was definitely, I definitely started to see the point where I was like, oh, I'm at least matching the level of the people I'm dancing with who are union members. So maybe it's time to start really making that, putting, the rubber to the road to get to that next step.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's a very good point, that it is a little bit different walking into a room. Like if you're just singing or doing a side, it's hard to gauge. Like, I mean, you can feel the vibe of the space. Like you can kind of read the room, but you don't know what the other people have brought in there. So it's just tricky.
Yeah, I would say that within acting and singing, I think the best place to gauge that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a really good place to do that is in class.
Yep.
Because then you're starting to see, okay, what are other people doing? At what level are they working? What are the things that I feel like I measure up on? Where are my pitfalls? But if you're not around other performers, and even if you just get a group of friends together and are like, hey, can we work on this stuff? If you're not doing that, then there's not really a way to gauge, where you're at in preparation for taking your card or for working at a higher level or things like that.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of vocally is like go to the cabarets, go to the, all the different shows that are in the city where people are, it's their showcase. You get to see them. Now like I said, still different because you're not seeing them work in the preparation. And I love your idea of like, let's just get together and
let's work on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So Sophie, you did the Dirty Dancing tour, you did the Chicago tour, and now you're vacation swing on the Jagged Little Pill tour. What is it like for you walking into a contract that is going to be moving around all the time versus going to, is it Florida where you did Sound of Music?
Yeah.
Or, in the city, doing work in the city where it's, a couple weekends of a show. Like what does that take mental preparation for? Like what is that like? The difference between those?
Yeah, I definitely think my first tour, I was a little lost in space. I mean, it was also my first union job.
Yeah.
My first time dance captaining, my first time swinging, my first time undersetting.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It was overwhelming and wonderful, and it taught me so much. But I don't even remember the touring process because it was like I was locked in my hotel room. Yeah. I was doing work constantly.
Right.
And I was only on the tour for 6 months. So by the time I started really feeling like I had a handle on all of my tracks and I had been on for all of them,
right,
it was pretty close to the end of my time on the road.
Yeah.
Chicago was a bit different because I was just responsible for my one track. I didn't cover anybody. It was great. Mm-hmm. So I think now that it's my third tour and any regional job, really, it's about, for me, making home where I am.
Yeah.
So that I have a safe space to return to after the show.
Yeah.
Whether that's my home here in the city or whatever hotel room or Airbnb I'm set up in. And the big thing for me is being able to cook my own food. Mm-hmm. So generally, it obviously really depends on what hotel you're staying in or how long you're there.
Right.
But generally, there's at least a mini fridge and a microwave in your room.
Yeah.
Sometimes not, and then you're figuring it out.
Yeah.
But for me, I travel with this little hot pot and a set of plates and forks and cups and bowls so that I can make food for myself. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge game changer for me, just feeling settled. One of my least favorite things to do is have to try to find myself food in these cities where typically you're staying downtown. It's a business district. Everything closes at 5 p.m.
Right.
Because the workers have gone home.
Right.
Nothing is open except the theater that evening. And maybe a couple of the fancier restaurants who cater to the people who are coming to see the show.
Right.
And that's not where you're going to go get your food. So it gives me so much more time on the road, so much more time at home, quote unquote, in the hotel room. If I'm cooking my own food, or I've already if I meal prep for the beginning of the week and it's just sitting there in my fridge for me and I can just go heat it up.
Yeah.
It just takes so much of the pressure off of being on the road. It doesn't make you feel like you're constantly displaced. So that was the biggest thing for me. And then usually traveling a candle.
Yes.
I
matches.
love that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the simple things.
It really is the simple things.
Yeah.
When you're on the road, just need something that makes you feel like home. I know people who travel, they're diffusers, so at least the scent is the same.
Yeah.
Or, and that's for me the candle.
So smart. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I have fallen in love with our diffuser at home, and being able to walk into a space, and especially when you're working so hard. I mean, tour, you're constantly working, moving, relearning tracks, working on split tracks, doing whatever it may be, but you're constantly working. So coming into a space where you're like, okay, I can breathe here. I can eat my food. I can smell my diffuser or my candle, and then I can go to bed.
Yeah.
It's so important to be able to decompress. Totally.
Yeah.
And also touring does a great job money-wise, typically, depending on what show you're doing. But it's also, food is so expensive. And if you're eating out every meal, let me tell you, all of that money goes
by real fast.
Yeah, so highly recommend at least learning how to cook your own eggs,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly. Okay. I feel like we'll probably circle back a little bit to that a little bit later, but let's go on to question 2, which is, Sophie, why do you think the arts are important?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, no, I love this question. I really do think they're so important.
Yeah.
And I think the various different art forms are important in different but wonderfully tied together ways. But I think it's mostly that I think the arts are the closest thing that we can get to the mysteries of God, the things that we don't quite understand, that we can feel, but we can't rationalize.
Yeah.
And one thing for me as a Christian, I've always loved the mystery of God. That's been my biggest tie to my faith is when there's things I don't understand, I don't shut down. I just get more curious.
Yeah.
And so I feel like art does the same thing for me. I don't always get it. I don't always understand what it's trying to tell me.
Yeah.
But I kind of love that.
Yeah.
I love that it's a conversation starter between people. There's so much to be had and discussed and felt that's going to be unique to you as a human that then you get to take to someone else and talk about.
Yeah.
And I think I especially love the theater because I really think that seeing the stories of other people played out live in front of your eyes moves you in a way and ties you to that story and ties you to those people in a way that just nothing other than having a conversation with them and trying to get to know them can do. It gives us a really beautiful glimpse into their own humanity, their thought processes that are going to be different than ours. And it's going to challenge your beliefs and it's going to challenge their beliefs. And it shows you how messy and beautiful and complicated people are. Yeah, I could talk about it forever. It makes me immensely proud to tell stories of all types. I think people often get hung up, especially theater-wise, because it is a live medium and you have to transform yourself into other people. Of course, we do need to draw boundaries of what we will do as human beings. But I've always wanted to shake people who won't do certain things or portray certain types of people on stage.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because it's not the like reality that they want to show. And I'm like, but it is reality.
Right.
This is what people are dealing with. And, you know, I won't say that a messy, challenging show is better than something that really just brings you a lot of joy. Like there are good to both, but I think seeing humanity through its own lens through the theater is unlike any other art form.
Right.
Right.
And some of them, you don't understand and you get to go talk about it. And you're like, what just happened to me?
Yeah.
You know, I love any moment like that, even if it's like, oh Lord, that was not my favorite thing. Let's talk about it. Yeah. I just love it.
Yeah. I love what you said about the mystery. That's so beautiful. And it's so true. I think that's, we've had was it Josh Dunn talk about beauty, like how that, and it's a little bit similar, like how it's like to behold something that is mysterious. It's like, there's something so special about that. There's something so special about being like, I don't know. I feel like we're just like spoon fed information so much these days that like to actually have something that you have to actively like be involved in with your own brain and your own thoughts and your own, you know, questioning your own thinking. It's like, it's just so valuable because there's not a lot of spaces that, I don't want to say force, that's a little too strong a word, but that like prompt you to do that, you know, that invite you into doing that. So yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. You know, Shakespeare talks about holding a mirror up to nature. And I've always been drawn to that when it comes to theater, because it's this opportunity to, as artists, as theater artists, the ones performing the piece, we, like you just said, transform ourselves into another person that is most of the time, completely unlike us. It's not like sometimes we portray those characters that you're like, I identify with this person hardcore. But then sometimes you're playing somebody who does not have the same struggles as you do, does not have the same outlook on life as you do, whatever it may be, but it's an opportunity to hold a mirror up to the audience and be like, this person is going through this thing. Now, what are you going to do about it? Sometimes it's bringing joy. Sometimes it's like, oh, I feel so alive after seeing that show. And then sometimes it's like, you know, something that is very difficult that you have to walk away from and contemplate it. And I love that is something that you are passionate about and draws you to, you know, the brokenness in humanity is oftentimes, you know, at least for me, that draws me closer to the Lord and closer to art, because I think there's so much healing in being able to expose the brokenness that's within all of us.
And I don't think sweeping anything under the rug has ever done very much good.
Any good.
You know?
Yeah.
We like to do it. We want to hide away from those messy bits.
Right.
Yeah.
But until you go in there and clean them up, they're still going to be sitting there whether you put a blanket over them or not.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And I think, sorry, Rach, should I cut you off?
No, I was just going to say beautifully stated.
Yeah, sure. Always beautifully stated. I had a friend in college. I took a class called Theater and Christianity. It was one of my favorite classes I've ever taken ever. And I would take it again and again and again. But my friend in the class, we were having discussion about a play that we read, and it was a really hard play to kind of like trudge through, and it dealt with a lot of really dark topics. And he was like, you know, as believers, as people who love the Lord, plays like this give us an opportunity, and which should excite us to run into the darkness, because we've been set free into the light. Mm-hmm. So being able to run into dark, we should be the ones to elect ourselves to do that, because there's no fear in the dark anymore. Whereas other people, it's, you know, they could be actually struggling and actually dealing with these things that are really, really hard. And we don't want to be, you know, invite them into doing that, could plunge them into some really bad stuff. So being able to elect ourselves almost to say, I volunteer as tribute to go into that, I think is like powerful. It's very powerful, because that's what the Lord did. But
I also think the theater is so beautiful in terms of art, because it is a collaborative medium. I think that's personally why I'm drawn to the theater also, is that I love theater for the people who do theater and make theater.
Yeah.
Because we do have to work together, unlike the visual artist who generally works alone, may have a collaborative partner, but in the theater, we are constantly with different groups of people.
Yes.
And I can't even say that on the road. Like, our crew members, most of them are locals. Like, of course, we have our main traveling team, but even our local crew is new to us every week, and getting to know them and getting to get their recommendations for food and things like that is so fun. And also so wonderful to get to know so many people. I mean, the theater will throw you in the deep end right away together. So you have no excuse, no other way but to become pseudo family right away, because as much as we like, it is a job.
Yeah.
There are some aspects that are going to be unlike having a job.
Sure.
Like being living together on the road, and these people, you know them unlike any other coworker that somebody could know.
Right.
And I just think that is also really wonderful and so close to God's heart, to just know the people around you, to know these communities of people.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than talking to one of your local dressers and hearing what they're going through and who they are and what kind of life they've lived. It's so extremely captivating and wonderful and unique.
Yeah. I have to say, just to our gentle listeners, that this, Sophie, literally what you just said is like my favorite quality about you, because you're just so, that goes into every project or every show or anything that you do. And it's really beautiful. And it makes you truly one of the most like fun and peace-giving, joy-bringing people to work with. So I just have to say that for the record. But okay, so we're talking about all of these different, these things that make us think so deeply. These worlds that you jump into and live in for 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe not more than that. I don't know.
Hopefully not. But sometimes.
In the rehearsal process, many hours at a time or things like that. So what do you do? What grounds you as a human?
Yeah. I think I've heard a few people on your podcast mention this, but it's true of me too. The reality of death, the reality that this is it.
Yeah.
You have to take advantage of it while you're here.
Yeah.
Means a lot. Like I have a very macabre sort of aesthetic and personality most of the time. I mean, I'm really bubbly, I think, but I also I love the dark sides of things. I love seeing both sides of a coin. I love like all of the different perspectives, and I love going to a cemetery. I think nothing else reminds you how grateful you should be to be alive than seeing those who have come before you and have left. And gosh, there's just nothing like that than Matt and I were just in Europe on our anniversary and went to a couple of different cemeteries over there.
I love that.
So cool.
Oh, it's just so wonderful. I mean, it really is. It's you see these graves from the 1800s and you're like, it just is such perspective on the little time that you get and you have, and just that you're but a breath.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I love that.
Yeah.
I literally have breath tattooed on my body to remember to breathe.
I love that tattoo.
Yeah,
it's
I do
so
too.
Beautiful. It's so beautiful. I always think of that Sarah Bareilles song, the Chasing the Sun, and I'm pretty sure it's a cemetery. What? A cemetery? A cemetery in the center of Queens. That's like one of the lyrics. So,
yep, I live pretty near that.
Do you?
I do.
See? Okay. Listen. You're near the Chasing the Sun cemetery, so that's pretty cool.
There is like we've talked about this before because both of us have nieces and are about to have, I'm about to have a nephew. She doesn't know what she's about to have yet. Megan, we're really excited for this baby. But I think there is nothing like the coming of new life or the exiting of life. I think that those two things, so death and life, sober us up to the reality that we live in. And the fact that we are all missed. My dad always says hovel. We're just hovel. And hovel is like the Hebrew word for the breath on a cool day. So it's this like idea of just barely there. You barely see it. It's just mist and then it goes away. And I think being able to center yourself on that perspective is just it's so wise and so definitely grounding. That's for her, sure. But
yeah. Okay. I want to make sure we have enough time for these last two questions.
Yeah, do it.
So our fourth one is, what person, place, or experience has shaped you the most creatively?
Let me see what I had to write mine down because I know I would get
always
nervous and excited and talk too much. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I wrote really all of them. I think like I don't really have a specific pinpointed moment where I could feel myself like coming into being an art. Like it just has been this like I said, I stumbled into it in the beginning, and then I had people just encourage me along the way, and I somehow ended up in New York City, and things have just kept rolling. And like I was just mentioning, all of the people along the way, that's what I love about it. And I also think that's what bolsters you up to each next step is the people who you bring with you. Like, you know, you're building the biggest like dog pile of wonderful people underneath you, the cuddle puddle, as I like to call it. Of just like people who you love and you can't wait to support, and who can't wait to support you. And so I don't really have a specific person, place, or thing, but
I think that's
all
so
the things.
Like, what an important perspective to share from your story, just because I think that so many people think of like a creative life or a creative career as like, oh, people have this like one big break, or like they have this like this one thing that happens. And like, sure, we can all look back and be like, this led to this, led to this, led to this, but it's less common to have like the one thing that catapults you somewhere else. Like, it's more common that, and I think very beautiful, that it's like this gradual, and you're just like this steady hard worker of like, and steady, this like steadiness of consistency in putting yourself out there. And like, there's a vulnerability when it comes to being an artist and auditioning, and and so the fact that that's what your story has been is, I think, a really beautiful thing.
I do remember pretty vividly when I moved to the city, saying to myself, saying to probably anybody who would listen around me, that I wanted it to be a career. I didn't want to be a flash in the pan, like I had my moment and now I'm done with this. Like I knew this was for me, and I knew it was going to be long term if I could have it that way. And so I think a lot of people who get that big sparkly moment, for better and for worse, but mostly for the good, they do their thing and they get out. Like, this business is really, like you said, it's vulnerable, it's hard. Most people don't really want to keep doing that. And I don't blame them. It's a lot of heartbreak. But I knew going in that I wanted it to be a career. A whole lifelong job. And so I'm not surprised that it's been that way the whole time.
You've been thinking longevity from the beginning. Which is awesome.
And I love the idea of the cuddle puddle. Mostly because I love hugs. But I love the idea of the cuddle puddle because it's like, I think this business, or like the artist's life, I think sometimes can get a bad rap of like, people think, oh, it's just like a dog eat dog out there. Like, you got to just like push everybody down so you can get to the front of the line, like tripping people as you go. Like, this sort of like, you have to claw your way through everything. And the longer I'm here in New York, the longer I realize that is simply not true. Like, there's this meme or this video that went around on Instagram for a while of somebody climbing a ladder, and then they like reach down and they grab somebody else's hand. And while they're going up the ladder, they climb onto the ladder, and then the next person grabs somebody else's hand, and it just like keeps going for like a minute, all these different people going up the same ladder. And I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, like that is exactly what it's like, is like one person goes to the next person, which goes to the next person. Everybody's tied together because all of us it's a collaborative art form, right? So we want to work with the people that we love and the people that we support and the people that we champion. And so it's a way for us to be able to create good artists with other people that we love, that we get to pull up with us as we go along. There's no such thing as, shoving people down if you want longevity in this industry.
Yeah, I used to get kind of frustrated by watching the same choreographer or director take the same people over and over again in shows, especially like regionally. People work the same theaters over and over again, and usually for the same director or choreographer. And I remember being like, that's so frustrating. But when you actually think about it, how wonderful is it to have made a connection so strong that people want to keep working. Like, you are trustworthy. You are a wonderful person to work with. Yes, please keep coming and doing my shows. Like, we can all be a little bitter and sad that it's not us, of course, but that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's who we want to be. We want to be those reliable at least that's what I want to be. I want to be a reliable person.
Yeah.
Both on stage and off. I want to be known for the good work that I put in, not just how I perform and that audition that day. And so I'll be happy and grateful for any moment anybody else wants to say, yes, please come. I know who you are. Come along with me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful thing that we get to build those reputations together. And there are people in our lives who do various things and will take us with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more beautiful that it doesn't always look like the thing that we thought we wanted.
Right.
It's probably even better. Like how much,
Right.
you know, what's the saying? We plan and God laughs.
Right. Exactly.
Like we have dreams and they're beautifully placed there. I think most of them are beautifully placed there by the Lord they don't come from a selfish place, but sometimes they do. And sometimes those need to be wiped from you. Sometimes they just need to wait until you're a little older and have a little more understanding of things. And then other things pop up in your life and you're like, I never even dreamed I would do that. And I'm so glad.
Right.
And so I think that's why the relationship portion of this career has always been my favorite, and the best aspect of all of it is just,
it's so good.
collecting people.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Sophie, the final question is, what book, play, or film do you think every person should read or watch?
Oh man. Okay.
I know you have probably 5,000 great
do.
recommendations.
I have a lot. I unfortunately I consume a lot of media. So that, I mean, it's for my career is what I like to say,
I think
but
it's
also
good. It's like inspiration all the time.
But books wise, I just read both of these and I think both are incredible. I love biographies. Are incredible for artists. Just Kids by Patti Smith.
Oh, love that.
Ooh, I'm probably going to reread it soon because it was just wonderful.
Carly
and then
Spina loved that book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can understand that. And then the other one that I read before that I fell in love with was Broken Horses by Brandy Carlisle.
Oh, nice.
And the way she talks about art is and the longevity of her art and wanting to make it meaningful and it's incredible. I highly recommend.
Yeah.
I did just see the new revival of Cabaret when I was in London.
Oh, Sophie.
I've heard that a lot of people have feelings, both strong, great and strong and wrong. Maybe.
Yeah.
I particularly fell in love with the show. I'm so excited that it's coming to the city because I really think as long as it keeps the same heart that it had. I mean, I've always loved that show. It's a dream show of mine to do eventually.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple of productions that have really taken my breath away. But this one really did take my breath away.
Oh, yeah.
I would highly recommend. I'm sure it's going to be an expensive ticket when it comes to the city, but I'm sure it will be around for a while too. So enter the lotteries and do all those things. But I definitely recommend that one. I haven't because I've been on the road for the past 8 months. I haven't really seen too many things that are new, but I did see Shucked, and that was
so fun.
So fun.
Blast.
I was really not surprised was not the right word, but it took me a little while to buy in at the top of the show.
Yeah.
Because I do like my art kind of heady and dark, and this is the exact opposite. And I had such a great time.
Yeah. I think surprised is an okay word to use because it's like when I started to see the marketing for that, I was like,
no idea.
What is this?
When I was waiting in line, they were literally
laughing.
serving corn on the cob.
Yeah.
In the line while you waited to get into the theater. And I was like, what?
It is pretty unlike anything that has been done before. So I feel like surprised is a totally perfect word.
I appreciate it. Talk about what we were talking about earlier. Sometimes you just need that little bit of joy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was so much joy. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Movies and TV shows and things like that. Oh my goodness. I'm a chronic rewatcher of things that I love.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if I have any new recommendations.
Totally fine.
But if you haven't watched any and all comedies such as The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
The newer one, I guess, is Abbott Elementary, which is also quite fun. I just love a good, especially to talk about when you're on the road and you just need a little
something to laugh at.
Something to laugh at, something light. those are my go-tos when I'm on the road. Otherwise, I really like stuff like the OA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Great. I love it.
Probably no good recommendations in there other than just like, if you like it, keep watching it. Yeah. Watch it again. Go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much.
Okay, Sophie, where can people follow you just to keep up with your career and everything that you're doing?
Oh, goodness. I do have a website that probably doesn't get updated as much as it needs to be, but that's sophieleemorris.com. So I would say if you actually want to know what I'm up to, probably more than you want to actually know if I'm eating a cookie or, something that day, that Instagram is at sophie.lee.morris.
Yes.
I think.
Love it.
I think
that's right.
That's right.
I think it's right too.
I tried to make it as simple as possible.
I had it on. Yeah. Okay. Yep. You're right.
Perfect. Don't really do. I mean, I have a TikTok. If you can find it, good for you. I don't really use it, so I don't know what my handle is there. Yeah. Facebook is long gone.
It's so funny because I think that I would say the bulk of people that come on our podcast are like, yeah, I have a website, but the best way to follow me is my Instagram.
Yeah.
And I almost deleted my website, and then one of the directors I worked with recently was like, no, we looked at your website. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll keep paying for it.
I'm keeping it. Yeah.
Like,
I guess I should update it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I mean, like you and everyone else, truly.
Yeah,
exactly. We're all like, that website that I have.
But it's also, I'm getting to the point in my career where I am starting to transition, hope maybe from ensemble to like ensemble understudy, or starting to play smaller roles. And so I probably should update it with a little less like I'm just a dancer kind of thing.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love dancing. There's nothing wrong with just dancing.
Yeah.
Preface with that.
I mean, but like, yes, Sophie.
But I'm also,
so much ahead of you.
Yeah,
like,
truly.
We're over the hill now as a dancer, so we've got to start at least thinking about what's next. So
Oh my gosh, we're so excited for what's next.
Me too.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, we are too, and we love you. Thank you so much for being here
y'all.
and for just chatting with us. And
I could talk to you forever about
Truly.
just like art.
Truly, we could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you so much for listening today. We hope you were inspired and connect with people. Create your own cuddle puddle of people as you're making art. And we hope this inspired you to do so. And we will see you guys later.
Thanks for listening to the For the Makers podcast. To find out more about Seated Productions, you can visit our website at www.seatedproductions.com and follow us on Instagram at seated.productions. And if you love what we do and want to support us, you can make a tax-deductible donation by visiting our website or by following the link in our podcast description. Until next time, listen well and tell stories.